What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another video from Pink Tourmaline. And today's video is basically has come to me because of this YouTube channel, Sergeant Schultz. Somebody in my live chat today mentioned this YouTube channel, and in particular mentioned a video that Sergeant Schultz had done on the Upanishads, which are, and I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly, these are Sanskrit texts related to the Hindu religion. I'm going to get into what they're all about in a moment here. But anyways, just shout out to Sergeant Schultz. This is where I first learned this information. And I went to, so check out his channel and check out his videos there where he talks about us being food for the moon. And that's kind of the what we're going to get into here. And that's what's mentioned in these ancient texts, which is really, really wild. So without further ado, let's get into the mix. We're going to talk about everything and we're going to reason through it and just see how it sits with us and see how it sits with all of these theories that have been circulating in our minds. So first of all, what are the Upanishads? Okay, the major Upanishads are ancient Hindu philosophical texts that explore the deepest questions of reality. What is the self? What is God, Brahman? What happens after death? What is liberation? They are part of the Vedas. So you probably have heard of the Vedas, especially the final philosophical portion called Vedanta, meaning the end of the Vedas. The most commonly recognized major or principal Upanishads are usually these 10 to 13. So now I'm going to read through what these 10 or 13 are broadly. So we have the Isha Upanishad, the divine presence in everything, living in the world without attachment. The Kena Upanishad. And by the way, living in the world without attachment, again, that's something that's talked about in the Tibetan Book of the Dead as well. In fact, not only living without attachment, it's more about dying without attachment. And when you leave the body, you don't want to have attachments as a means to help yourself escape the rebirth cycle. Cyclic existence is called in the Tibetan Book of the Dead. Kena Upanishad asks what power is behind the mind, senses, and life force. Katha Upanishad, a dialogue with death, contains teachings on the soul, afterlife, and liberation. I'm going to eventually have to read this in their entirety. I just kind of looked at excerpts that were related to this particular topic, food for the moon. Prashna Upanishad, 6 spiritual questions about life, breath, meditation, and the self. Mundaka Upanishad, higher versus lower knowledge, the famous image of 2 birds on 1 tree. 6, the Chandogya Upanishad, very short but profound, analyzes waking, dreaming, deep sleep, and Om. Taittiriya Upanishad, like I said, excuse my pronunciation if I am doing this wrong, which I very well probably am. Layers of the human being, body, energy, mind, wisdom, and bliss. Aitareya Upanishad, creation, consciousness, and the self as the source of experience. I mean, this is like deep stuff. Just from the titles, in terms of all the things that we're talking about, the self as the source of experience, and that our consciousness is actually what is creating so much around us, and that's kind of the computer system behind everything that other people, physicists, William Bullman talks about this idea, and this is from millennia ago. It's just, I don't know, it's pretty wild. Chandogya Upanishad, one of the largest, includes the famous phrase "Tat Tvam Asi," you are that. Brihadaranyaka Upanishad, one of the oldest and most important, includes Neti Neti, meaning not this, not this. And again, the Chandogya Upanishad, this is one that we're going to be looking at. There's going to be a couple others, but this is one in particular that's got, we're going to look at this one first. That's got a wild line in there in relation to the moon and food, that food being us. Shatara Upanishad, theistic, discusses God, Maya, yoga, and devotion. Kaushitaki Upanishad, teachings on consciousness, life force, and rebirth, reincarnation. We got some quotes from there as well. And then the last one, Matri Upanishad, discusses mind, meditation, time, the self, and liberation. Right? We come back to this idea of liberation. I actually don't have an excerpt from that section, but maybe one day we'll go through and read and review that section. Okay, so without further ado, what this is focusing on for the most part is how does this tie back into the soul trap theory and the idea that potentially the moon, as Jason Giorgiani and others have said as well. I think there's a gentleman from the 1920s, and I'm blanking on his name right now, who is, at least in our modern time, one of the earliest people to talk about this idea of us being food for the moon. But yeah, so just trying to see how some of the discussions in this text merge with this concept and this idea, as wild and crazy as it might sound. But I'm just trying to pick all the missing pieces together. By the way, down there, you see that's my Instagram handle at Pink Tourmaline, Huzefa. So feel free to follow me on Instagram. I know a lot of folks are starting, not a lot, I got very few followers, but some people are starting to follow me on Instagram. And the point of it is so I can share little quick videos, and also you can reach out to me if you want to send me ideas or send me thoughts. I've been already connecting with a bunch of people on there and they've been sharing ideas or thoughts with me. And it's just a convenient way to send me stuff as opposed to just emailing me or whatnot. So anyways, without further ado, let's get into some of the good stuff here. So first, the Chandogya Upanishad. And we're specifically looking at the section 5.10 3-6. This section describes the path of return after death for those who perform ritual, charity, and meritorious works, but do not attain final liberation. It is part of the two paths teaching, the path of the gods and the path of the ancestors, right? The implication here is the path of the ancestors. You're coming right back in the cycle. And the path of the gods, you're exiting and I guess claiming your sovereignty and doing what we know, I guess, is ultimately the aim. So here are the sections. Those who live in the village practicing sacrifice, public works, and giving go after death into smoke. From smoke into night, from night into the dark half of the month. From the dark half into the 6 months where the sun moves south. They do not reach the year. From those months, they go to the world of the ancestors. From the world of the ancestors to space. Now, when they say the world of the ancestors, I'm thinking of the AI astral plane or whatever people describe when they have near-death experiences. That's what I think. I could be wrong. That could also be the void. I'm not sure. And then they go to space. So it sounds like space, maybe getting out of that plane. And then they go to the moon. The moon is King Soma. It is the food of the gods, and the gods consume it. So this ties back to some of the remote viewing experiences where energy seems to be extracted from our consciousness, from our essence after death, right? Once our soul has been released from the body. And perhaps this is happening in the moon, near the moon, whatever. And so they're saying the moon is King Soma. It is the food of the gods, and the gods consume it. So right, they're not saying that the moon is the food of the gods. I don't believe. I think they're saying that we are the food of the gods, or our essence or our consciousness. But again, I'm still new to this, and I'm just trying to interpret this stuff the best I can. After remaining there as long as their merits last, they return by the same path. From space, they come to air. From air, they become smoke. From smoke, they become mist. So go up. The energy is extracted, just like that Brett Stewart video describes, and then boom, sent back into a new reality on this planet, reincarnation. Having become mist, they become cloud. Having become cloud, they fall as rain, and then they are born here as rice, barley, herbs, trees, sesame, and beans. From there, escape is very difficult. Whoever eats that food and emits seed, they become connected with him and are born again. So the part about becoming, I guess, like part of the earth, plants, whatnot, I don't know if they're saying it becomes very difficult to escape just by being reincarnated or being brought back in via plants or food or whatnot. I'm not exactly sure, but obviously you could interpret that as escape is difficult once you are now reincarnated. And it also ties back into the idea that Robert Monroe says that every time you repeat the reincarnation cycle, it's almost like you are gravitationally attracted to the earth, and it becomes harder and harder and harder to escape the orbit. I don't know how true that is, but that feels like it coincides with something that Monroe had stated. Okay, now we get to the next section, the next Upanishad, the Brihadaranyaka Upanishad, the path of the ancestors and return. Okay, so there I've highlighted moon every time moon is referenced here. But those who win worlds through sacrifice, charity, and austerity go to smoke. Again, it's this idea that you live kind of a proper holy life, and it seems that does you a benefit. And I am thinking there's something to this idea that the more you live in your truth, that you live in harmony with yourself, that you speak the truth, that you try to follow through with what you say. I think there's something in that maybe keeps your spirit clean, maybe keeps your discernment strong. Again, these are theories. I'm not sure, but I am curious to look more into this. Like there might be, even though I think we are a lot in this path, we're sort of discounting a lot of the mainstream religions or how things have been twisted and turned in a lot of the religions to fit a particular narrative and to keep people submissive. But there could actually be some merit to the idea, albeit it's obvious obfuscated, but there could be some merit in this idea in the importance of living a righteous or an honest life. Anyways, from smoke they go to night, from night they go to the dark half of the month, from the dark half to the 6 months during which the sun moves southward, from those months to the world of the ancestors, from the world of the ancestors to the moon. Having reached the moon, they become food. Again, our essence rising up. So here it's pretty clear. They become food, right? The ancestors become food. There the gods feed on them, just as sacrificers feed on soma as it waxes and wanes. But see, now he's also talking about sacrificers feeding on soma, which is, I think, the moon or the god of the moon or something like that that was mentioned earlier. So maybe the moon is also fed upon, or maybe that energy that is stored within the moon, the gods feed on that. I don't know exactly, but pretty clearly it's saying we become food for the moon. That's just a weird statement, especially in light of everything that we've been trying to uncover here. What Jason Georgiani has talked about, thinking that there's psychotronic equipment in the moon potentially absorbing this loosh, absorbing this energy. And again, the loosh, while it is being emitted while we are here, but many remote viewing accounts have also stated that loosh is extracted after death. So this would line up with that. But when the result of their good works is exhausted, they return again. What does that mean? The result of the good works is exhausted. Like their loosh is exhausted, or I'm not exactly sure. From the moon, they return to space, from space to air, from air to rain, from rain to earth. So this idea that comes back to the earth. Having reached the earth, they become food. They are again offered into the fire that is man. So they become food, and then they're offered into the fire that is man. See, that's a little different from the narrative in the astral where you kind of go and you choose a body and all this stuff. And from there, they are born into the fire that is woman. I don't know. Thus, they rise again towards the worlds and go around the same cycle as before, reincarnation, obviously. But those who know neither of these two paths become worms, birds, and creeping things. And so I actually took a little extraction from ChatGPT when they were trying to explain this. I thought it was beneficial. So I said the core meaning here in all of this. 1, the path of the gods associated with higher knowledge, truth, and forest contemplation, it leads beyond ordinary rebirth. So that was again mentioned in the other Upanishad. You take the path of the gods and you effectively eject from cyclic existence. I'm going to use a term from the Tibetan Book of the Dead. Or we follow the path of the ancestors associated with ritual, merit, charity, austerity, but this leads to the moon, heavenly realm, that astral plane that people talk about in the NDEs, which may not be so heavenly, and then eventually returns to rebirth, reincarnation. So this lines up exactly with this whole narrative that we've developed. And then the lower rebirths, for those who know neither path, that's the ones that I guess become the worms, which I haven't really heard anybody talking about, or many people talking about this, maybe reincarnation into an unpleasant form or an unfavorable form. I don't know. And it's not exact. Here it says it has those who have neither of these two paths. So I guess you have no merit, maybe some sort of a negative existence that would happen. Although, like I said, I haven't heard any discussion of this in these near-death accounts. Maybe we're only getting a fraction of what's available, but in these near-death accounts or other discussions. So now we get to the last one, the Kaushitaki Upanishad, another section talking about the moon once again. Those who depart from this world go to the moon. And again, look, I know that these texts could be written a long time ago, and they just may have been looking up at the moon and saying, okay, this is where we go. This is the place we always see. We imagine we fly off, and that's the first destination. Like there could be other explanations. So I'm not married to this idea, but I do find it fascinating that this is explicitly described in these ancient texts. But not, and again, not just going to the moon, it's food for the moon. It is something to consider, I believe. In the first half of the month, the moon flourishes by their vital breaths. In the second half, it sends them forth again to be born. Like it flourishes by their vital breaths. It's being fed. Once again, it's saying it, but not saying it in so many words. The moon is the door of the heavenly world. Whoever answers it properly. Now, this is the interesting part where it talks about the moon being a gate. Like this is the point where you can either return or bounce off and be free. Whoever answers it properly, the moon lets pass. But whoever does not answer it properly, the moon sends back down as rain upon the earth. Then he is born again here as a worm, insect, fish, bird, lion, boar, serpent, tiger, human being, or some other creature, according to his actions and according to his knowledge. This is something that is, in terms of these questions and having to answer these questions or pass these gates or whatever, as Sergeant Schultz talks about, this is a theme in Gnosticism, but this is also discussed by the remote viewing team Intuitive Underground. They said that they've seen that if you avoid the life review and you don't go into the astral, you kind of get to this point where there's a weighing of your acts or your deeds. Kind of a secondary life review is what it sounds like. Don't quote me on that, but that's my understanding. And again, so that lines up with this idea that you have to answer these questions or pass this section properly in order to be free. When he arrives there, the moon asks him, "Who are you?" He should answer, "From the shining moon, the ordainer of the seasons, the seed was gathered. From the moon, the home of the ancestors, I was sent forth. The gods placed me in a man, and through a man, they placed me in a mother. Thus I was born month by month as the seed of the year. I know that I am time. I know that I am the child of time. Therefore, O seasons, carry me to immortality. Who are you? I am you." And then the moon lets him pass. Okay, so what this is saying basically is, and I had to look this up to figure this out. It's not like I knew this when I read this, but basically this is saying that you have to have a realization that you are more than just this body, that just this personality, and what that your last incarnation was, that you are massively beyond that, that essentially this self-realization is what will set you free. And that's what they're saying you must say here. You must recognize that I am you. I am time. I am the child of time, etc. So you are going back to recognizing your true identity, and then the moon will let you pass. So one more little section here that I wanted to include and we're going to come back to that, by the way, that self-realization being the key, because I have a little excerpt from Sergeant Schultz's channel where he talks about this explicitly, but it says, just in summary, all who depart from this world go to the moon. In the bright half, the moon delights in their life breaths, food for the moon. In the dark half, it sends them forth again to be born. And that's the dark side, maybe the dark side of the moon. I'm not exactly sure, but maybe it's like, boom, you're just shot back from that point. All who depart from this world go to the moon. The moon nourishes itself with them. Like, that's crazy. We are food for the moon. It's not just consciousness, life force in general. It is very specifically a post-mortem checkpoint scene. The departed soul reaches the moon. The moon functions as a gate, and the soul must know the correct answer to pass beyond, rather than return to the cycle of birth. So what is this correct answer that we just talked about, right? This idea of realize the self. And just to give a little more clarity on this concept, I'm going to turn it over to Sergeant Schultz.
And this is why later the Upanishads explicitly state, I know I said that a million times, but this is explicitly state and declare the knowledge of the self escapes the food chain of gods in death. There's people all over the internet saying they know this, they know that, they know how to escape the reincarnation trap. I'm telling you, the only way for sure, most likely with high probability, is you realize the self. Realize the self is how you escape. Don't listen to anyone else. This is specifically, explicitly stated more than 2,000 years ago, how to leave the simulation, how to escape samsara, how to escape the reincarnation and the cycle of death and rebirth. You can do it. You can realize the self. The book has a 4-month plan. I go over all the videos explicitly for the millionth time, how to escape the simulation, whatever you want to call it, a school, a prison, but this is how you do it.
Okay, so he talks about realize the self. Now we're going to go into more detail. I guess he's got, when he says this book has a 4-month plan, I think he's talking about this book in particular, but I'm not positive about that. But anyways, I looked it up. I said, hey, what does this mean to realize the self in context of the Upanishads? And this is what we got here, right? And this is actually ChatGPT helping me to put this in the terms of what we're talking about here, this idea of the soul trap. So the soul trap only works if consciousness misidentifies itself with the temporary self. Once again, not realizing the self, this is our temporary self, the body, personality, memories, guilt, desires, right? And actually, this all lines up with the idea of letting go of all that stuff, letting go of the guilt, the desires, whatever. And therefore, you won't be susceptible to this life review, fear, karmic story, family attachments, religious programming, astral appearances. Realizing the self means recognizing that your deepest identity is not the character inside the cycle, but the witnessing consciousness behind the cycle. In the Upanishadic language, that is the realization of Atman. And I've heard this, the true self, but I'm still getting familiar with this terminology. The body dies, the mind changes, the personality comes and goes, but the witnessing awareness behind experience is unborn, undying, and ultimately bound by, and not ultimately, bound by the machinery of rebirth. So from a soul trap lens, the trap depends on forgetfulness. You forget what you are, then you accept another identity assignment. This is the memory wipe. I am this person with this karma, these sins, these debts, these lessons, these guys, this mission, this family, contract, life plan. Once you accept that identity, you can be steered back into another incarnation. Self-realization is the opposite move. It is the refusal to be hypnotized by temporary roles. It is the refusal, right, to be manipulated, to be coerced into feeling these things, and then just getting caught up in this idea of, okay, well, yeah, right, we need to go back in because that identity there, which is still my identity, I need to evolve this identity. And I think it's rejecting all of that and zooming back out to who you truly are, really, really remembering. And in the Upanishad, it says to realize the self, say this: I am not merely this body. I'm not merely this biography. I am not my fear. I mean, this is stuff that we should all be saying. You know what I mean? What do we come back to right here? Self-love, pink tourmaline. That's what it represents. I am not my fear. I am not my guilt. I am not my desires. I am not even the astral images appearing before me. I am the awareness in which all of this appears. Like the dots are connecting. Awareness. Which is something that what's his name says all the time, David Icke, right? Increasing our awareness. That's it. That brings us to the end. That brings us to the end of this video. A lot to process here, probably for you, probably for me. And I'd love to know everybody's thoughts on this. What is this? What do you feel about finding this? I mean, not just in one line, but in multiple sections. There's probably even more sections that kind of allude to the same idea. Food for the moon. The idea that we're nourishment for the gods. The gods, right? What do you guys think about all of this? How does it line up? Does it just make you feel like we're even more so on the right path? That's kind of where I'm at right now, but I need to really let this sit with me because I just heard about this today and then boom, researched it and made this video. And that's kind of how we do on this channel. So that's all I got for you guys today. Let me know your thoughts in the comments, please, please, please. And was this fascinating to you? Was it something you already knew, or was this a little bit mind-blowing like it was for me? All right, guys, I'll see you in the next video. Take it easy.